Yeah. Yep. Great. So first of all, let's go into Spring. So this is the Spring thing. And if we go to the next slide. So first of all, why we need Spring, okay? So when we come to why we need Spring, why Spring and all this, let's talk about first the limitations of the Java, okay? And in this limitations, previously what we had was like we had huge boiler code. Like let's suppose if you want to write a print statement, right? You need to have this public void main thing. We need to create a class, and we do need all that. So it's like a boiler code sort of thing. So we need huge boiler code, and there are many complexities in J2E. J2E is like a previous version of enterprise Java. So that for building Java applications, we use this thing. So there were many complexity. And to run these things, run this Java applications, we need to have many servers set up and all that. And the thing is, you can write it anyway. Like I can write it in an optimized way. You can't. I mean, like I can't write. I mean, like I will not write it in an optimized way. You will write it in an optimized way, and that will cause issues, right? And the other thing was the scalability thing. So it was like not easily scalable. So that was also we were having issues, and then we had this testability. Okay. Coming to testability, like this JUnit that we are using right now, before it was like little bit difficult because you are not following a specific structure sort of thing. It's like directly we will write लिख देते हैं सब एक ही जगह पे. So it's like that. Now maintainability, like let's suppose say like there are 5 people, okay, and we want to add five people are working on a project, and they have built huge amount of code, and a new guy comes and he wants to understand it, and it will take time for him. So that rather than directly getting started on developing, he needs to first understand the code and all that. So that's why the maintainability was also an issue. So these were some of the issues with the Java thing. So for that one, so yeah, before that, let's see the code for the Jdbc code. Like if you want a car ID, okay, like I want to fetch an ID from the database. So if I want to fetch it now, I have to write this much amount of code in normal core Java. Like we had this prepared statement, result set, driver manager, get connection, execute query, execute SQL exception, and all that. Okay, so this was the previous thing, because this is huge amount of boiler code, right? Like everywhere I have to use this con, prepared statement, result set, and everywhere. This was causing an issues. Rather than focusing on writing the code, they had to focus on boilerplate and all the stuff. So coming to the next thing, Spring enters the room. Okay, Spring was built by this company. I don't know the company name. I don't remember the company name, but this company was like open sourcing it. Okay, open sourcing, like they were building this so that they get more publicity sort of thing. Like it's like an open source thing, but if I build this, I get publicity. So that's why they build it, but it's totally open source. Anyone can contribute to that. So now coming to what is Spring. Okay, so we had this Java limitations. Remember the Java limitations. Okay, what all the issues that we were having in Java. Now coming to what is Spring. Okay, so Spring came up with these features. Okay, what features did it come up with? It came with features like decreasing the boiler code, like the huge amount of boiler code that we had, right? The prepared statement, the connection, and all that. It tried to decrease that. Okay, and the other thing that it was what was there was it had it was thoroughly tested by these Spring people, so that it was it was totally powerful. And the main features that all the developers liked about Spring was to beat the complexity of J2W, Java Enterprise, some Java Enterprise application. I mean, like the Java Enterprise Core thing. Like rather than Java Core, we have this Java J2E. So that Java Enterprise applications, that whatever that are written, rather than having huge amount of codes to write, they will just focus on the main thing. Like if I want to build hello world, right? I just need hello world. Whatever you do inside it, it doesn't matter to me. Like the business thing, no. Like the business guy will ask you, I want hello world. I don't want whatever that you are doing. It doesn't matter to me whether what technology are you using and all that. So so that this Spring makes it easier for developers to just focus on writing print, writing the hello world, rather than focusing on system out of println and all that. Okay, and coming to the next thing. So this was a difference between the normal Jdbc and Spring Jdbc. Like before, we had this prepared statement, results state, get connection, and all that, right? So this was by using the left side code that we have, right? By using the left side code, we were able to get an ID, like an ID of a car, okay? But if you use Spring JDBC, you can just do that in one line. We didn't do this, like we use Spring Core in our assessment string, but there is also a thing called a Spring JDBC dependency that we need to install it. And if we do that, we can do it in this way, like car.class, and we just say ID so that we will get it. And we doesn't need to focus on, having all these select statements and yeah. So the next thing was, this was the difference between the Spring and the Java. So why we need Spring and why what is Spring and all that. Now next, I think everyone is clear until this point, no? And does anyone has any questions about something? Anything? No? Guys? Hey guys, can you hear me? Or was I just speaking to myself?
Yeah. We are
Okay.
texting on chat.
Okay, I can't see that. 1 second, let me just open that. Yeah, got it. Cool. Okay, so this was the difference between the normal Java thing and Spring. So why they developed Spring and what is Spring? Okay, now let's get more into Spring family. Okay, now coming to Spring family, no. Okay, so coming to Spring family, so there are many things: Springboard, Spring, MVC, Spring this, Spring that, and all that. Okay, so now let's get more deep into that so that we know what is happening inside. Okay, so first of all, I was also a little bit confused in the beginning, like what is the Spring and all this. So I just wanted to put this out. And first came the Spring framework. Okay, this guy is the parent, like he is the one who built everything, like the whole Spring family sort of thing. Now, what did Spring framework do? Uh, when we first talked about Spring, I spoke about it as an ecosystem, like the whole structure sort of thing. Now we are getting a little bit deeper into it. So first of all, let's speak about the Spring framework. Okay, Spring framework mainly try to decrease the complexity. Like rather than having writing this much amount of code, it decreased it, and it made it easier to develop web apps and core apps. It was a huge success in the market, so that people were like, Spring, everyone was like Spring framework, Spring framework, Spring framework. So they stopped, they were using it, they were using J2EE, but they were using in combination with the Spring framework thing. Okay. And 1 second, guys, I'll just close my window. Okay, this was a huge hit in the market, the Spring framework thing. Okay, so now, but the thing was like the configuration and all, it was taking a little bit, it was a little bit problematic in Spring framework. Okay, so what they did, they came up with Spring projects. Now, Spring projects were these things. What Spring does, there are different sorts of projects. Okay, these projects were built on top of Spring framework. That's why I said the children, like that he was a parent and these guys are the children. Okay, and they focused on doing only one thing, like rather than Spring framework was doing everything like security stuff and all those stuff, but these guys came into picture and they said, let's have a module called as Spring security, which will only focus on security thing. Like let's have a module called as session, which will only focus on handling sessions and all. So this was the Spring projects. So first came the Spring framework, next came the Spring projects. Okay, and in this they also continually evolved, and they also were like everyone was using them. Now came this guy, the hero. Who is the hero? The Springboard. Why we call this guy as a hero is Springboard is also a Spring project, but it has some default stuck in it. Like let's suppose, say I want to build an e-commerce application. Okay, now in this e-commerce application, what sort of stuff should I have? Let's suppose that there are two projects, like let's suppose that there are two Spring projects called as Spring Security, two types of security versions, like uh, one one sort, I mean, like Spring Security 1 and Spring Security 2. You were confused between whether to use this project or uh, like use the Security 1 project or Security 2 project. This was causing an issue. So people were like in sort of dilemma that which project should I use better. So they were having this choice dilemma sort of thing. Now Springboard said, hey, you don't have to deal with it. I will do that. Like I will have a set of default functionalities in me. Okay, so I will be doing all the stuff and you just focus on the code. Like rather than you focusing on which thing to use and all, like should I use Tomcat with my project or should I use this, I will do that, all of those things for you. You just focus on writing the code. So that's why Spring Boot was an huge hit. Okay, so that's why if you see, Spring Boot was a topper of the class. So people were using Spring Boot everywhere, started using Spring Boot. They are also using Spring Framework and some of the Spring projects if you need it, but people started totally using Spring Boot. Okay, and now if I take a look at lastly, I mean, like after first, if you see, right, first Spring Framework came into the picture. Then based on Spring Framework, we got our Spring projects, the children. And based, I mean, like based on all of the issues which were in Spring projects, right, we got Spring Boot. Okay, now this until here, I think do you guys have any sort of questions, or am I going too fast? Okay, cool. Okay, now you got it, right? Complexity in the sense like J2EE complexity, the code, right, that I showed in the beginning, like yeah, this code. So J2EE complexity was like huge amount of unnecessary code, like the same code that we keep on using it. So rather than that these guys tried to resolve that. So that's why this guy came into the picture. Okay, now once the Spring Boot came outside, like came into the market, people also had a requirement for microservices. I think we are going to we have this in our timeline, and we will be working on this. So lastly, we have the Spring Cloud. Okay, Spring Cloud is built on top of Spring Boot, so it was like very it was also very powerful. Okay, now Spring Cloud made it easier to develop microservices. Microservices in this, like guys, if anyone doesn't know about it, it's like we have Netflix, right? Netflix, Amazon Prime, and all that, no? So we get huge amount of traffic on Netflix and Amazon Prime now. So what happens is that when we get huge amount of traffic, the applications will crash, like because it can't handle that much amount of data and it will not be able to process that much amount of traffic, and that's why they will be uh, they will get overloaded and they will be not be able to respond back. So for that we have this concept called as microservices. Now these microservices, what we do is, it is the name suggests the same thing, like it's a little bit of services, like bunch of services, micro services. So now what happens is, whenever we get traffic, right, like let's suppose say I have 1 lakh amount of traffic who are trying to access Netflix. Now what happens is that 1 lakh amount of traffic will be split into half, like 50,000 and 50,000. Now this 50,000 will be sent to one microservice and another 50,000 will be sent to another microservice, so that no guy will be overloaded and he can handle it, like the services can handle themselves, so that they will not be overloaded. And what happens is that if I get more traffic than 1 lakh, right, automatically another microservice will be created, and whatever traffic comes after 1 lakh, all of that will be diverted into the third microservice. So it's like it's like that. So the traffic derivation and all that. So that's a little bit about microservices. But the thing is that it had many defaults in it. Like I'll get back to that. Okay, like the defaults thing, right? I'll in the upcoming slides you'll be able to understand more about the defaults and all. Okay, now coming back to like this is one big happy Spring family. So it's like totally these guys are the Spring framework, the Spring Boot, Spring MVC, and all that is like a one big ecosystem sort of thing. So whenever people talk whenever people talk about Spring, either either they are talking about Spring as a whole family sort of thing, or if they specify, right, like if they specify like Spring framework, then it means one specific thing. Like if they just say Spring, then that means like a whole eco family sort of stuff. Okay, and now coming back to more about Spring Boot, man. Okay, now I just wanted to say about Spring Boot because now the Spring Boot is like very topper. As I said, he's a very topper in the class, and people started very much using these guys. So I just had the three features for the Spring Boot thing. Okay, and in the Spring Boot, we have this thing called as three features. Main features were three features, which were auto configuration, standalone, and default settings. Uh, so if you see the image, right? So we were using Tomcat to set up, and then we were doing the development on all. But once we got Spring Boot, we started using Spring Boot. So that's why that name specifies correctly what we are doing right now. Now coming to the auto configuration thing. Now Spring Boot is very intelligent and very powerful. Okay. Now what it does is it auto configures itself. Like let's suppose say there is an example of this that I have this image, right? Like the spoons and the plate and then cookie on it. Now what happens is that let's suppose say I give you a plate. Okay, uh, if I give you a plate, what would you think? Like you will also give me, I mean, like you'll also give me a spoon and fork, right? So it's like that. Spring Boot, if you just give him the plate, he will give you the spoon and fork. Okay. And if you give me a plate with cookie on it, okay, if you give Spring Boot a plate with a cookie on it, he will not give you fork and the spoon. So it's like that. So based on your dependencies, it auto configures itself. Like it uses best practices. Like if I try to manually configure it now, then I would do sort of there would be many sort of bugs and all. But because Spring Boot is dealing with everything now, we'll not have any sort of issues. Okay, so that's about the Spring Boot auto configuration thing. Now coming back to the, as we said, the standalone thing now okay, so let's okay a little bit more about the auto configuration. Now this is something like the code is something like this. So if your application depends on the database related dependency, then automatically Spring Boot will configure itself so that you can have application for database access and all that. So it deals with it. You just give him basic stuff and he will deal with it. So it's like you will just say like I just need something like what would be a good example for this? If you just say that you need water bottle, okay, he will configure himself so that he puts the water inside that water bottle. Like it's a funny explanation, but it's something like that. Okay. Now this is about the auto configuration. Okay, so I'm just trying to explain that it auto configure itself by default so that you don't have to deal with stuff. Now the second thing was the standalone, so that he himself, like Spring Boot, doesn't need anyone. Like I put the single for life thing, but it's like it's something similar to that. It's like it doesn't need anyone to run itself. Like you can uh, so that's why I have this Hanos. So like he is one main guy who doesn't need anyone and all. And 1 second. Yeah. 1 second, guys. So sorry about that. Yeah. So the thing is that single file life and doesn't need anyone to build the application. No, it builds everything on its own and it deals with it. Okay. Now this is about the Springboard standalone thing. Like the features, in the three features, this is one of the main features. So if I go more into the standalone thing, right? So now this is the difference between the normal Java web application and a Spring Boot application. Okay. Now what we do in a normal Java web app, what we do is first we package the jar. Like let's suppose that we have like I think you guys we didn't talk about this in our sessions, but there is this thing called as, we had this Maven, right? So in this Maven, what happens is that we were directly running this Maven by using, we were just using Maven for dependencies now, like to fetch these dependencies and all that. But you can also build jars with it, like let's suppose that you have 10 Java files, okay, which are totally connected. And if you run one main file, everyone will run. Now, what will this Maven will do is, it will, if you see this representation, right, it boxes and all that. So this Maven will take all these 10 Java files and it will place them inside that, and it will make it one file, like my application.jar, right? So it will make it like that. So that's what Maven does. And the thing is, right, coming to the normal Java web application, what we do is first we make a jar, okay, then we choose a web server like Tomcat or any other server, and then we configure that web server to run this Java application, and then we copy paste this jar into that web server folder, and then we are able to run it, right? Same thing, Springboard will just do it in one command. Okay, so you just need to package it, and it will, and you just need to say Java minus jar my application.jar, and it will just run it. It will deal with it. Like he doesn't need anyone. It has built-in servers and all that. So he will configure himself based on the application, and he will run it. So that's why Springboard is like, everyone is like Springboard, Springboard, Springboard. And coming to the next thing, right? The third one, which is like the default settings one. Okay. Uh, what should I, how should I say this? There are some defaults in Springboard, right? Uh, like Springboard will not allow, if you say that I don't want to run the Tomcat server, I want to run, I don't want to run my application in the embedded server. I want to run it on my own Tomcat server. No, so then Springboard will not allow you to do that, because it's like a best practice sort of way. So that's why he's not allowing you to do that. But there are some, ways to deal with it, but I don't know. I didn't get much into that. I just know that overview of that stuff. So what happens is that there are some defaults in Springboard. Okay, like you can only do this in this way, because in this way, right? The way that I'm talking about, this way is the best good way. So it's like people think that I mean, like the way where I studied, I mean, like the documentation that I saw in the Medium articles that I saw, they said that it's like not my way or highway, like my way or highway, in the sense like you should always do it in my way only, or else you can go you can go somewhere else. It's not like that. You can configure it depends on what you want to do and what your application needs. Okay, so you get that point, right? Like it's like not totally you should only follow my instructions or my things and all that. You can you can use anything else also. So this was about the Spring Boot default settings, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sorry
Ah,
for interrupting, Ashwak. Can you explain it again? Spring Boot default settings.
okay. 1 second. Yeah. So should I go on this? From current side. Okay. So the thing is, how should I say this? Mm, okay. Good explanation for this is like in tech stack, right? In our tech stack, they say to use arrow functions. Until unless you use arrow functions, the what do you call this? The test cases will not pass, right? But it is quite the opposite in Springboard. But you need to follow some of the best practices, but not totally. Like it's not like totally you have to just use this and all. You can, you can configure it to yourself, but not totally. Just lead to an amount. It's like that. Did you get my point? What I was trying to say?
Yeah, Ashwak. Now I get it.
Yeah, that's how it was. So that's pretty much the whole thing about this thing. And I think I also have an documentation. My notes. 1 second. 1 second, guys. I'll just second. I don't know whether I can show this. Do we have much time left? I got a thing called as. I also wanted to talk about the Spring Core, but I was not. But I didn't get enough time to make it into a PPT and show it with and like with good illustrations. But I have Word document with me. So I was using this Word document. I don't know whether you guys are comfortable with this thing, but yeah, we only have 8 minutes, so I'll just try to go through with this. Okay, Spring Core is also one of the one of the children of the Spring framework. Like he is also one of the Spring project. Okay, but Spring Core has many stuff inside it, like integration, web, data access, testing, and AOP. Okay, so Spring Core contains many sort of support and all that. So it's like if you have Spring Core, you don't need to build. Like you don't need any other sort of dependencies for Spring. If you just need to build a basic application, if you need to build a basic application, if you just have the Spring Core, you don't need anything else. But if you need any much more, then you have to import your dependencies and do all those sort of stuff. So that was about Spring Core. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it, guys. Yeah. 1 second, let me just stop this recording.